Let's go to Congressman James Comer, the Kentucky Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee. A special counsel, Congressman, what do you make of that?
Well, I'm not a big fan of special counsels, but Merrick Garland had no other choice. They made a big deal out of Trump's handling of classified documents. They appointed a special counsel to investigate that. He had no choice but to appoint a similar counsel to investigate Joe Biden. I would say that the Democrats' chickens are coming home to roost, so they had to respond in kind with that. But let me be clear, this special counsel better be just focused on Biden's classification or his handling of classified documents, not on our investigation. We're investigating the Biden family influence peddling. I think you see with what we've learned about the Biden Center for Diplomacy, their major donor were anonymous donors from China. If you look at where Hunter Biden's money was coming from for his so-called investments, they were from anonymous donors in China. His artwork that he's selling in New York City, supposedly going to China, to anonymous buyers. I mean, there's a pattern here with the Bidens and China that's very concerning for national security. So I'm concerned about Biden's mishandling of classified documents, given the fact that China has so much access to this family. But I'm also concerned about an overall broader picture of potential corruption with Joe Biden and China.
All right, so Chairman, if you could ignore my legal ignorance, but is there a distinction between a special counsel and a special prosecutor?
That you're asking the wrong person that. I have studied special counsel, special prosecutors. There's never been one that's really ever accomplished what they were set out to do. And they always expand their investigations. I mean, you can't name me one, whether it dated, recently or in the history of time, that was ever what I would consider effective. So the reason that Merrick Garland did this today is because he had to. They had already done this to Donald Trump. And this was a big part of their business model in trying to indict Donald Trump to where he can't run for re-election for president in 2024. Now Joe Biden's done the exact same thing, probably worse. They had no other option but to appoint a special counsel.
Yeah, it might be all semantics, sir, to your point. We do know a little bit about Robert Hur, that he was a former prosecutor, so that skill set goes into this job. We don't know how long he investigates this. I'm just wondering your thoughts early on that the president might not have known this was going on. I don't know if that's better or worse. I mean, you could make a clear argument that if you're unaware, that's an even bigger issue. How did those documents get there? But what do you think?
I think that I would believe him if he said he didn't know he had those documents in possession. Look, we need to know who all's had access to the president. The story doesn't add up, Neil. When he said that his lawyers discovered these documents on November 2nd when they were moving boxes out of his office, does anyone really believe that lawyers are involved in the moving business? Who would pay high-dollar lawyers to physically move boxes and documents in a move from one office space to the other? I'm not buying that. And then I'm concerned that this was discovered on November 2nd. Why are we just now finding out about it? The only reason we know about this was CBS had an investigative reporter that broke this story That's 2 days ago, or else we would never know. This administration has tried to cover this story up, or they would have been transparent about it long before November 2nd. And
to your point, if they even knew about it. But you raise a good point in comparing to the way the treatment of Donald Trump here, because the Attorney General had back in November appointed a separate special counsel, Jack Smith, to oversee what amounted to a criminal investigation related to former President Trump, including the president's retention at the time of hundreds, if not thousands, of documents at his Florida estate. So now the question is, do we know even, Chairman, at this point, how many documents we're talking about here? Now, there were hundreds, potentially thousands in the case of Donald Trump. Do we know here?
We don't know, and that's a problem because the National Archives is under the jurisdiction of my committee. When something like this happens, they're supposed to give a briefing to both the chairman and ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. They never did that with me, with Donald Trump. We just read about the raid on Mar-a-Lago in the newspaper just like everyone else. We didn't know about this with Joe Biden. This is very concerning. I'm not buying all the aspects of the explanations of how the documents were discovered, but at the very least, we want to know who had access to both the Biden personal residence and the Biden Center. Considering that Communist China was the biggest donor to the Biden Center for Diplomacy, I think we should be very concerned about who all had access to that building.
It's a very good point, Chairman. I think it's a bipartisan push for clarification. You know what I'm curious, though, about, Chairman, maybe you can help me out with this. Is there a process in place where the National Archives, which obviously wants these and has right to these, all of these documents, when something is missing, when someone there is aware, we're missing these? Because I've raised it not only in the case of Joe Biden and then Donald Trump before him and Sandy Berger, remember, with the documents hidden in his sock, and General Petraeus, that this happens a great deal, and it usually comes to light not through the National Archives or other groups saying we're missing something, but someone fessing up about something or discovering or just stumbling upon something. But there doesn't seem to be any sort of James Bond markings of top secret material that would immediately trigger an investigation. Where is that missing stuff?
Well, that apparently is the way it's always been. We know that previous presidents have had issues where they mistakenly took classified documents. We need to reform this whole process. The president doesn't pack their own boxes when they leave office.
Yeah.
We need to have a strict process for how documents are packed and which documents can be identified as classified or not, because the president's always going to take an enormous amount of documentation with them when they leave office, because they rightfully want to write a book, they want to have memoirs and things like that. But at the end of the day, this shows the incompetence of the National Archives. We've requested information. They're normally a sleepy government bureaucracy that comes before my committee once a year for a general report. They won't even return our calls right now. It's very concerning. This is another government agency that is in dire need of reform, and it's on our priority list in the Republican majority.
So when a president or a vice president leaves office, sir, I'm sure they're intent on writing a book, as you say, or collecting for memoirs or whatever. I'm sure they have to clear that through maybe the National Archives, maybe a group before them. But much like when you take out a library book, I'm being simplistic here, the library knows you have their book. It seems to me again and again, the National Archives don't realize that you have classified documents.
That's a good point. When Trump lost the presidency to Biden, Chairwoman Maloney, then chairwoman of Oversight Committee, requested information from the National Archives, wondering whether or not the administration had reached out to them to coordinate a move, and they replied back that they had. So all the information I ever had, that was the last time I've heard from the National Archives. They said, yes, the Trump administration is working with National Archives in moving their documents from the White House to Mar-a-Lago. We haven't heard from them since. And we know what happened at Mar-a-Lago. Now we're just now finding out, because of investigative reporting, what happened with the Biden documents. There's a lot of questions here. And look, Neil, we haven't even gotten into the point how they raided Mar-a-Lago. They went through Barron's belongings. They went through Melania's closet. They took the surveillance camera. What have they done with respect to the Biden Center or the Biden residence? I haven't heard of the FBI raiding those places. I haven't heard of them seizing their security cameras. There's a double standard here. So this was the very least Merrick Garland could do, appoint a special counsel just to save face, if nothing else.
Chairman, you've been very patient with my ridiculous questions, but I was curious about another thing the president said. Maybe it was just poor wording, maybe clumsy wording, maybe he didn't realize what he was saying, but he did refer to documents being moved by lawyers. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever moved furniture or had stuff moved out of a house or an apartment or college dorm or what have you, I never hired lawyers to do that. I hired a team of movers. And that raised a question. That's a high-priced moving team there. Why would lawyers be involved?
They wouldn't. That's not true. I mean, somebody's probably already banned Joe Biden from answering any more questions from the press for a long time, because we know lawyers didn't physically pack those boxes, pick them up, load them on a truck, and move them to another location. That's ridiculous. So, again, more questions, and hopefully we'll get some answers very soon.
All right. You have your work cut out for you, sir. James Comer,